Thank you everyone for joining our webinar this month on 5 ServiceNow resolutions to jumpstart your 2018. The reason why we wanted to do this webinar this month is because we do see clients who tend to potentially neglect activities that may seem less important because they may be less time sensitive or less urgent, but we want to make sure that you know what is at stake so that you're not left behind in the new year. And what are just some general good ideas from the pros to kind of keep on your toes and keep everything up to date. Just as a reminder to everyone, you can ask questions throughout the webinar. There is a module on the GoToWebinar panel that you guys can open up. One question we get very commonly is this session going to be recorded? Are there going to be handouts? And yes, we will be sending everything out through the email right after the webinar is over to give you a survey on the webinar, and then to usually the next day give you a recording of what we went over through today. And there's actually handouts that you can download today right now if you look in the handouts panel there that you can open up, and if you're an overachiever, want to have those during the session, feel free to do that. Obviously, we'll have everything up on the screen as well. If you're not already familiar with Cerna Solutions, let us introduce ourselves. We specialize in developing cutting-edge solutions and unmatched consulting services, primarily aimed at the ServiceNow space. That's mostly who we work with. And we do provide both products and services that focus on automated testing, on service portal consulting, as well as virtual administrative services, which we'll go over in just a little bit. Speaking of our virtual admin program, just to kind of bring this up as information you may need to know, and it may come up during the session as well. Something we just wanted to talk about is we do have a service where a number of our clients have come to us for reasons where they may have a backlog in their system, which happens to some of the best companies out there, or they may not have the right expertise in their employees at the time. So one of the programs that we offer right now is called the Virtual Admin Program, where people can come to us, where they get a service of our consultants who have a minimum of 3 years of ServiceNow experience, who are trained and certified and experienced in managed services. One of the things that you get with our virtual admin program is you get access to our experts at any time. So most of our requests are acknowledged within 8 business hours, often resolved within 1 to 2 business days. And you have direct access to us through a virtual admin chat channel. You also have access to our best practices, which helps you increase buy-in from your end users. It helps you increase the ROI on your investment with ServiceNow. And we give you access to detailed reports and documentation through our best practice checker and our Cerna doc program. And it also helps you get the most out of both your ITSM and ESM features of ServiceNow, such as security operations or marketing or finance management. So right now, I'm going to go ahead and introduce Carrie. She is our senior technical consultant. She's been with us for just about 2 years now, and we've loved working with her. She has over 20 years of experience in IT. She has certifications in ITIL, sysadmin, implementation specialist, and she is a self-proclaimed process nerd. How are you doing today, Carrie?
Hello, hi. I am definitely a process nerd. If you're talking about something and it sounds like a process and I can think of a way to improve it, I get really excited. There's a whole look on my face thing that happens, and it's pretty fun. So that's why I'm so excited today to talk to you guys about maintenance, because maintenance is one of those things that does sort of fall through the cracks, and then but you can sort of get back on the wagon by setting up little processes for yourself so that you regularly address these little things. And that's one of the things that we're trying to do today, is to get you some entry points so that you can, when you have, say, a spare hour, which is rare, but it happens, you can sit down and focus on, say, one of these things and get to the information that you need quickly. So let's go ahead and get started. Okay, so I'm sure that when all of you think about maintenance, you think about, just like me, you think about 20 reasons why not to go ahead and do maintenance right now. Like, there's so many things that are on your plate, I'm sure, and it just seems like it's not really worth the time, or you just don't have the time to do it. And so we're just going to go through a couple of reasons why does this get pushed to the side and ignored. So first of all, like I said, time intensive. It can take a little bit of time sometimes to get to the bottom of your system, to sort of evaluate it for problems and to do some little maintenance things that, even though you know they need to be done, sometimes it does take time. So what we're hoping to do here is by identifying these 5 things, give you a way to schedule those little bits of time that you don't normally have things to do in. Use those times to work on maintenance bit by bit, and then maybe set up a little process for yourself where you do it repeatedly, maybe once a week. Take an hour or half an hour and work on these things, and then you don't even have to think about it. And the best process, I think, is one that you don't have to think about. So another reason that you might not do the maintenance, or that might hold you back from doing maintenance, is that sometimes it can demand oversight. Sometimes you can't just make the decision, okay, I'm going to remove all of these files because we're not using them. I'm going to kill these records. You know, you have to talk to somebody. You have to get that approval. Well, we're hoping with this that we can help you identify those things. So you can go ahead, if you have your admin rights and everything, you can go in and take a look at the records and identify the ones that you might need to talk to somebody about and get approval. So you can still get some of that work done and push the approval until later. Along the same line, it sometimes can involve sign-off from various departments. You might have to get a consensus EGADS, which is the worst thing in an office, is get everyone to agree of the steps that you're going to take. And so, again, if you can do the work ahead of time to narrow your focus and pull out maybe these 3 things that we need to agree on, it'll make that meeting go a whole lot smoother. So here we go. These are our 5 quick habits that we've identified that you can put into place to improve your instance in the new year. The first one is security and role audit. We've got cleaning up and updating your old catalog items, reviewing your knowledge base, checking your scripts for best practices, and investigating performance issues. So let's jump right in. Security and role audit. Why would you want to do something as crazy as auditing your security? Well, of course, you want to make sure that you have control over who has access to your instance. It matters who can get into your instance and make changes, who can get in there and put information in or take information out. And you just, you know, I don't know, if you're like me, you want to have control over that kind of thing. So people aren't getting in there and making changes without your knowledge. Also, it'll help you align with regulatory standards. If you're working with a regulatory body that oversees your organization, they're going to want to know who has access to your system to make changes, who has that admin access. And they're going to want to know that you know that. So they have confidence in the fact that you are on top of it. Also, another nice thing is that you can potentially reduce your ServiceNow costs by removing unused licensed roles. So in some ServiceNow circumstances, you're paying per licensed role to use ServiceNow. So say if you have a whole bunch of users using the ITIL role, you usually have a number that you're trying to work within as far as how many users are using those licenses. If you have users that are using up at license that aren't actually using ServiceNow, then this is a good time to remove that role from that user and then save yourself some money, hopefully. Okay, so how do you get started? So if you're an admin, you have access to the roles table. First thing that I would do is you go to the roles table and you pull up your elevated admin roles. So usually that's going to be admin, security admin, and you might have some other ones that assign extra access that you want to kind of check into. So you'll pull open that admin role record, and if you scroll down to the bottom of it, you'll see a list of users. Generally, for your instance, you're going to have a small amount of admin users. Hopefully, you can look at that list and you know all of those people and you know why they have admin access and whether or not they need to have admin access. But maybe you look at it and you see names that aren't familiar to you or you have questions. This would be a good time to make a note then of those names. Either remove the role from them if you have the authority to do so, or then take that little list to whoever does have the authority to do that. Say, hey, wait a minute, these guys have admin access. I don't think they should. Or why do they? And then you would go through and remove them. The next, you would check licensed roles. So I used the ITIL role a minute ago. So ITIL is the role that you would have if you're providing service from within ServiceNow. So if customers are using ServiceNow and then you're on the other side providing a service, you're generally going to have the ITIL role. And so if you look at this list and you look at the list of users with the ITIL role and it's just ginormous and it's not what you expected to see, then this would be a good time to go through that list and see, why do all these people have ITIL, and are we using all these licenses? Are we paying for them? Should we not be? And then to start that conversation. If you have the authority and you find people who have roles that don't need to have them, then this would be a good time to remove those roles from those users. And so you could just click edit on that list of users and move them from the right to the left, and that will remove the role from the user account. And then once you've done that, you or whoever handles the connection with your ServiceNow rep might want to have an email or call about whether or not you guys are within your licenses, and maybe you want to make changes to that and potentially save yourself some money. Okay, moving on. Let's talk about the catalog. Now, this could be a big one, so everybody take a deep breath. Okay, catalog. We're going to get into it. All right, so why is it important to clean up and update your old catalog? If you guys are using your catalog a lot, you know that it is constantly evolving, right? Your customers always want new stuff. Either there's another new computer that they would like to order, there may be new software, a new version of something, or a new process that you've put in place over the past year that now you need a catalog item for. So that sort of thing is constantly evolving. What doesn't happen a lot is that things get retired from the catalog. So that's an effort that we're talking about maybe undertaking here, is going through and identifying the things that aren't really getting used anymore and taking them out so that it makes it easier for your end users. As you might imagine, if you're an end user looking for a computer and you pull up a list of computers and it shows you all of the computers that you've ever been able to order, over the life of the catalog, that's going to be kind of confusing. You're not going to know exactly which one to order, which one to click on. So by cleaning up these old catalog items and deactivating the ones that aren't in use anymore, you keep it more simple for your users. It also gives you the opportunity to bring your items up to current standards. Maybe when you started your catalog, you just wanted to get those items in there, or you didn't know how you wanted them to look. Maybe you didn't have pictures for everything. This would be a good time to look at the items that are in heavy use, make sure that they're all, using the same font, they have the same amount of description, etc., and that they're all up to current standards. All right, so there are many ways to get started with your catalog, but this is the way that I would do it. So first, I would start with the requested item table. I would go there and I would filter out everything, or I would filter in, I suppose, everything that was ordered in the past year. So since it's 2018 now, you might need to select this year and last year, and that will show you everything that was 2018, 2017. And so you'll get a list of all of the requested items from the past year. Then you would group by that item. So you would right-click on that item column, go to group by item, and it will give you a list that looks like this. So you get this list then that shows you out to the right how many times that particular item was ordered in the past year. This is invaluable because you can see which of these items are actually being used, which of them are really not. If you look at, say, the 13-inch MacBook Pro, 52 people ordered that last year. So that was a really popular item. If you look at the one above it, the 13-inch MacBook Pro with Retina display, only one person ordered that. So this would cause you to ask yourself questions. Why is that? There are two similar items. Why is one being ordered so much more than the other? One reason might be that the Retina display came out later in the year, and so that's like the new version of it. And so that might be a question of, do we need to keep these two similar items available to our end users, or do we retire one of them? So once you've made your list of things that are in heavy use and things that are not being used very often, then you would take that to your catalog item list and really just eyeball that catalog item list. I would remove anything that you have decided that you don't need anymore because it's not in use, or those items are not available anymore. So you can just deactivate those things. But you can also deactivate things like, if you see in the middle of this screenshot, there's a copy of an item that someone made at some point that is probably a duplicate. And so you might be able to just deactivate that one as well. And so you'll see these are all marked as inactive. So they won't show up in the service catalog. All right. One last thing that you might do if you're concerned about your catalog, and certainly if you want to bring some items up to date, is I would take that list of heavily used catalog items and I would go into some of those items and I would conduct a random item audit. And so basically what I mean by that is, click on one, take a look at it and see if it has all the information you want it to have, if it's got the correct picture, etc. Everything is looking good. And that's the kind of thing that you can, even if you have 5 minutes of time. So maybe, you set yourself a routine that like at the end of the day on Friday before you leave, you're going to check one catalog item, and you just do that every Friday. Set yourself a reminder on your calendar, and then in that way you can sort of work your way through that list of items. Okay. Reviewing the knowledge base can be another big job, but still important. Let's talk about why that is so important. First of all, old or incorrect knowledge, we all know, is worse than no knowledge at all. I think we've all probably had this experience where we do a Google search to try to find a solution to something that's going wrong with our computer or our phone. And we find this article and we're so excited because we're going to fix this, and we go and try to do it. And then it turns out that it was from like 5 years ago. It no longer actually applies to what we're trying to do. And that doesn't work. So we've just wasted our time trying to fix it with this bad information. And you don't want that for your users. You don't want your users to have to waste their time. Also, reduce your searching times for users. So, if you look for something and it pulls up 100 articles, you have to sort of check through that 100 articles to see where the article is that you actually need to fix your thing. If it gives you 10 articles, that's a lot quicker to search through. So removing those old articles will make it easier for end users to find what they need to find. And then just like the catalog, it can help you bring your old articles up to current standards. Maybe you have like a stub that you put in during an outage, when you're freaking out, you're like, this is broken, don't touch it. And that you put that in, and that's all the information that you have. Well, now you can come back and fill in more information, maybe link it to a page that tells you a little bit more about it, put in a picture, whatever works for you. Okay. So how do you get started reviewing the knowledge base? It's very similar to the catalog in many ways. The first thing that I would do is go to the list of articles, and you're going to identify the articles that are in heavy use. And we do this not so that you can like deactivate the ones that aren't being used, because they still might be useful to your end users. But I recommend identifying the ones that are in heavy use because you want to focus on those. Those are the ones that your users are looking at. Those are the ones that it makes the most sense to spend your time evaluating. And so you can use the use count column to do that. If you show that column, you'll see that it shows like every time an article was opened. Probably in your knowledge base, it'll be more than once each, but this is from a demo instance, so not a lot of use in that knowledge base. Okay. Once you've identified those articles, you're going to review them for correct and updated info. So just click into those articles that are at the top of your list. Make sure that they are updated. Make sure that they have everything that that you would want end users to have when they're searching for that issue, any pictures, any links, etc. And then also a good thing to look at is you'll see this is the knowledge feedback table. So in your knowledge articles, if you're using the latest version of ServiceNow knowledge base, there's a box at the bottom where people can put in feedback. So they can say, this didn't really help me, or I wish that this had more detail, or this link is broken, etc. And so knowledge feedback can kind of give you exactly what it sounds like, feedback on your knowledge articles, so you can use that to do a little maintenance on your knowledge base when you're undertaking this effort. So I would use that to sort of click through those knowledge feedback articles or knowledge feedback records and make sure that you're addressing those concerns. And then I would go ahead and retire articles that are no longer relevant. So you're certainly going to come across some that are probably still being used, but maybe aren't accurate, or you just don't want people to use anymore. And so you'll make that list of those items that you don't want people to have access to because they're no longer relevant, and you'll just retire those in your instance. Okay. And you can update older articles to bring them up to current standards. Like I said, so this one, I've got a little example here. The one on the left was put in like as soon as we realized that this virus existed, that I made up. And then the one on the right is one, of course, that is fleshed out with more information and actually tells the end user a little bit about what's going on. And so you could sort of use the one on the right as a template and go to the left and try to put in more information if you have some more, or perhaps this is the time to retire that article if that's no longer a particular issue that you want your users to be concerned about. Okay, So let's talk about checking your scripts for best practices. This is getting a little bit more, slightly more technical. But why is important? Well, of course, you want to stay upgrade ready. So you want to keep your scripts in line with best practices so that ServiceNow, when it pushes an upgrade, it will see what it expects, basically. ServiceNow is expecting your scripts to be in line with certain best practices, and it just makes your upgrades go a lot smoother. If you look at, after you do an upgrade, if you look at your upgrade log, you'll see all of the instances where ServiceNow skipped over a particular script that you have for whatever reason. Usually it's just because you've edited it, but sometimes it can be because it doesn't align with what it's expecting to see. So this will help you kind of have fewer issues when you want to upgrade. Another reason is just to improve performance. And when you have good performance of your system, then you're going to have better overall buy-in. People will want to use your system if it's working well. If it's not working well, then they will want to use it less. So best practices in general will help you with performance. And then anytime you're taking a close look at your scripts or looking at the structure of your ServiceNow, you're probably going to identify things that aren't working. And so this is always a good thing so that you can pick up on things that maybe are causing trouble that you didn't realize, and you can fix them. Okay, so how to check scripts for best practices. There are lots of different ways to do this. You could certainly go through your list of scripts and search for, you could search your business rules for current update and make sure that none of those rules are using that or something like that. So like you could do a manual way. There are also other ways where you can use best practice checkers. We have a great one that I'm a big fan of, and I'm just going to show you that report. The way it would look, basically, you give us your instance information, we plug it in to this best practice system, and then it kicks out this report. And you'll see, first of all, one of the things I like about it is that it estimates how long it will take to really fix all of these things. And it gives you a good solid amount of time. I think this is actually pretty accurate based on the things that it has found. It starts with the positive, all the areas in which you don't have issues, so you can just skip over those areas. And then it gives you a list of the areas that maybe you need to focus a little bit on. And it helps you out also by estimating exactly how much time it thinks you might need to spend on each of those areas. So you can look through this list and say, okay, well, that one's really important to me. We need to get on that. But that one I don't care about, And so let's focus and use these 3 hours and get that fixed. So you can prioritize. Another thing that I like is, in fact, what was I talking about? Like business rules should not use current update. That's what I referred to earlier. So if you take a particular best practice that we're talking about, it will give you a little explanation of it, which is cool. It'll give you a link to ServiceNow's explanation of it. And then it'll give you a quick answer as far as how to fix it. And then my favorite thing of the whole thing is that it gives you a link to the scripts. So if you have your list of scripts that are causing trouble, you click on your link. If this was a live report, it would give you a live link. And it would go right to your instance, right to that script. You could fix that thing in that script, close out of that script, come back here, and click on the next one. So if you have ever had to fix a bunch of scripts all at once, you'll appreciate how nice it is to just have all the links together. You can just go straight to them. So if you want to know more about this particular best practice checker that we have, just go to cernasolutions.com/best practices. There's some more information there. And then talk to us if you want to run it on your instance. I think it's pretty cool. Okay, investigating system performance. This is probably the biggest, most amorphous one that we're going to talk about today, but I'm going to try to narrow it down to a couple of specific things that you can do to start investigating your system performance. So first of all, let's talk about why that's important in the first place. So the closer and more intimate, let's say, you are with the operations of your ServiceNow instance, the more quickly you can address any performance issues. So if you have gone through this and addressed all of the issues that you know of, and everything is running smoothly as far as you know, and then suddenly something pops up, you're going to have an idea, or at least a better idea, of where that's coming from. You're just going to be more familiar with it because you've been working behind the scenes in your ServiceNow structure on a regular basis. So it'll help you more quickly address your performance issues. Again, anytime you take a closer look at your scripts and what's going on, the underpinnings of your ServiceNow instance, you're going to identify some broken processes. It's going to help you find some things that were maybe broken that you didn't realize, things that were, waiting to become an issue. So you can identify those processes and get those fixed. And then it will help you gain insight into instance operations. I don't know about you, but every admin I know feels a little bit like there's a lot of mysterious things going on in ServiceNow. And if you really take the time to look closely at what's happening in your structure, to get familiar with your log, your system logs, and just take some time and get familiar with those systems. It's a lot less scary to jump in there and try to fix something. So, I mean, most admins won't admit to that, but I'm sure that they feel a little bit like, oh, what's going on here? So this will help you get into that. All right, so how to get started. Like I said, I want to give you a couple of things that are just some quick hits to get in there and focus your efforts and try a couple of things and see if you can't uncover some issues. So the first thing I would do is look at the transaction log. You can sort the transaction log, which is basically a big table that records when ServiceNow does sort of a programming transaction behind the scenes. And so it also records how long it takes. And so you can sort that log by response time. And so you can identify the transactions that are taking a really long time and take a look at them. So here we've identified one at the top here. And so I would click into that. And then you're basically a detective at this point. You are Nancy Drew, and these are your clues, and you're going to figure out what's going on here. And so I would look at this, and I would see that it's pointed to URL, job, check upgrade script. I see that it's talking about Glide scheduler, and that makes me think, okay, well, this is a scheduled job. So I would go take a look at the scheduled jobs. I would look for check upgrade script, and I would just take a look at that script and see if there's anything in there that might be causing trouble. So it's just sort of a pointer towards things that you might identify as issues. Another thing you can do is to use your system logs to identify repeated error messages. So if you go to in your navigation menu on the left-hand side and just type in the word logs, scroll down until you see system all, click on the system log, and you'll get this, which is basically ServiceNow telling you everything that is wrong. Which means that it can be a lot of information. And we don't have the number here, but it can be thousands and thousands and thousands of messages every day. And so one thing that you might do is set yourself a little goal, like set yourself a goal of cutting down the log by 20% or by a third, and give yourself a target. That way you can spend a couple of hours on figuring these things out, but you don't feel like you're going to get sucked into a black hole of like maintenance forever. So if you're aiming to just reduce by 20% or reduce it by 1/3, then you would look at these logs. You would identify repeated error messages. Like right here, you can see it's talking about some problem in some script, and it says RP is not defined, and it's just doing that repeatedly. So what I would do is click into here, see if there's any more information about what script it's talking about, and then track it down, just like a detective, and figure out where RP is, why is it not defined, where is it trying to get that information from, and just debug that code. And then, depending on how many times it's trying to repeat this message to me, that may do it all by itself if it's repeating it a bajillion times. Basically, you just have to wait until the next day, see how many messages are generated, and then try again. Dive in, find something else, fix it, and then try again. So no matter how you're going about trying to investigate performance issues, after all of this, you're going to need to make a plan, because you're probably going to identify some things that are going to take some in-depth work. And so your step forward would be just to make a plan of which of these are important that we need to deal with, prioritize those issues, and then determine how long you think it might take to fix them, and then get the approval you need to go ahead and take that time to do those things. Okay, so, this is animated. I didn't know that. Okay, so these are the resolutions that we are talking about. These are all tiny little things to get started, but of course, as you now know, can stretch on into bigger things. So what I would recommend is that you maybe pick one and set yourself a time, maybe once a week or once a day, even if you're really, really dedicated. And just spend a few minutes addressing that one thing. Take that one little step and then amass your list of things that you have found that need to be addressed or need to be discussed with your manager or need to be discussed with other departments, and then go through that systematically. And in that way, you will master, eventually, hopefully master, maintenance with your system without having to think about it too much all the time, and you can get rid of that nagging feeling in the back of your mind. So thank you so much for listening, and I'm going to go ahead and move on for questions. Tim?
Thanks for that information. And just as a reminder to everyone, we do have the questions still open right now. So if you want to throw anything in there for us, we'll be happy to get that answered. I think we're about 4 minutes past our time at this point, but we have time if you have time. So feel free to stick around as we just kind of go over some of these questions right now. Carrie, one question that I had while watching your presentation, and we'll get to everyone else's in just a second, but you had mentioned about updating the license count with the representative at the end of the year, just to make sure that you're not overspending on your license. How common is that? Do you see that happen pretty regularly when you're working with other companies?
I don't see a lot of companies addressing that kind of thing, but I have this sneaking suspicion that it's one of those things that sort of gets swept under the rug, or doesn't really get the attention that it deserves. And I feel like it's such an easy thing to sort of true up that count, to just take 5 minutes and check and see who has this and fix that, that it's just worth it to include, even if you just do it once a year, just take a look and see what you've got and just check to make sure that number is correct. Because you never know, you could save yourself some money. It's worth a try. So
sure, I imagine that's pretty substantial, actually.
Yeah, I think so too. It's just a valuable thing to do for as quick as it is.
Okay, we had a question about the best practice checker, how you had pointed out the links that directed you into the script in there. And I know that the report that you had wasn't live, but how does that work? Does that open up where that development was done in the instance, or how does that work?
It links to the actual record for the script in the instance. So if it's talking about, say, a business rule, it will pull you right into that business rule. It'll go into your instance and pull up that business rule as if you were going to administrator, or as an administrator, you're going to administer that business rule. So it will pull it up for you, and you can alter the script right there and then close it and go back to your.
Are you able to open that up again? Are you still able to?
Yeah, I can open up the. Oh dear. Maybe. Sorry, it's confusing. Okay, here we go. Let me get back to that page. Here we go. And clickety-click. Okay, so literally I would click, this link would be a live link. You can't really see it because it's kind of far away, but it's got the URL here and then the actual sysid of the script. So it does go right to that URL of that script to the record so that you can edit it from the record.
Okay. And that's in the section where it's kind of going over some of the issues that it found and how you can resolve the issues.
Right. So it identifies like where, which script are we talking about is having this issue, which I think is great. So it pinpoints that so that you can go right to it without having to dig through all your scripts.
Okay, perfect. We had a question about the investigating long-running transactions, and you kind of mentioned being a Nancy Drew there, and they were asking about what are some of the other ways that you can investigate that. You kind of gave one example, and I think they were looking for a few.
Sure.
More.
So as far as system performance issues, I'll just sort of put that up for some reason. I don't know why. Okay, just to have something. Okay, so as far as performance issues, I really think, honestly, a lot of the big performance issues you're going to be aware of because your end users probably won't stop telling you about the thing that is not working for them, that they want to work better, especially if it's something that they use every day. So like if the incident form is loading really slowly, you're going to hear about that a lot. And so I think it's a really good idea to just turn to your users and see what they're seeing. What are their struggles? What is getting in their way when they're trying to use ServiceNow, and use that also as kind of a roadmap towards the things that you're going to investigate. Maybe use that as a starting point, and then in conjunction with the logs or with your transaction log, look for those particular types of issues in your log and see if you can find anything that relates. if that makes sense.
I think that makes sense.
You have to say that. Hopefully everyone else does too.
Well, hopefully, yeah. If anyone has any additional questions on that, obviously we still have some time. Feel free to throw in your questions there. But right now, I'm going to go ahead and thank everyone for joining us for this webinar again. Oh, hurry, Carrie, hurry. Okay.
I did it. We're there.
Just as a reminder to you guys, we do these usually about once a month. We had to, for the holiday season, we skipped December. We're going to be doing 2 in January. And I just put a link in the chat right now to register for the event we have coming up in just 3 weeks' time, which is on 360 testing for automated testing for ServiceNow using Capio. So if you guys have any questions about automated testing or want to know more about how to supercharge your ServiceNow QA with 360-degree testing, definitely click on that link, register today, and we'll be sending out an email with you guys for a reminder for that in the future as well. But again, everyone, thank you so much. We really appreciate it, and we'll hopefully look forward to seeing you guys soon.
Yes, thank you guys. Have a great day.